So without really any further ado, maybe we'll just go around, maybe starting with Jill, maybe if you want to start us off, kind of what's your name, where were you born, and where did you grow up? What is your sport of choice? What schools are you considering or are in? What was the last show or movie you watched? What is your favorite phone app? And who is your favorite athlete of all time? I know that's a lot, so I'm going to copy and paste from my slide and just put it into the chat.
Yeah.
So you can follow along there.
Okay, I'll open the chat. So yeah, my name is Jill. I was born in Douglas, Ontario, and that's also where I grew up. My sport is volleyball. I actually am finished school now, so I did 4 years at Trent University, and then I did my post-grad at Humber College, and I played volleyball for them as well for my last year of eligibility. The last movie I watched was the new Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever. My favorite phone app is probably Be Real, and my favorite athlete of all time is Serena Williams. Yeah.
Good choice. Mohamed, you want to take us next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name is, let me go look at these questions again. My name is Mohamed. I was born in Toronto, North York region, but I grew up in Peterborough. My sport of choice is rugby. I am somewhat finished my athletic career. I played 4 years of rugby at Trent and then 2 years of rugby at Queen's. And so right now, the schools I'm considering are more academic, probably PhD. So it'd be Queen's and U Ottawa. The last movie I watched was also Wakanda Forever. My favorite phone app, probably FaceTime, just because I'm in a long distance relationship, so I use that a lot. And my favorite athlete of all time, I think it's Muhammad Ali. No pun intended. Yeah.
Wicked. Thanks, Mohamed. Dani.
Yeah. So my name's Dani. I grew up in Bolton, Ontario. I guess I was technically born in Etobicoke. And my sport of choice is also volleyball, like Jill. I played 5 years out west at UBC and graduated a couple years ago. I guess I can't say a couple if it's like 5 years ago, but yeah. And now I'm coaching at Queen's, which is really nice and fun. And I got a good group of girls, so it's great. The last movie I watched was A Star is Born on the weekend. And my favorite phone app, I actually just also downloaded Be Real. My sister made me, so we're having some fun on there. And my favorite athlete of all time, I just love Roger Federer, and he just retired and was really emotional about it. But yeah, it's got to be him.
Yeah, he tried to overthrow Serena's retirement, but it didn't work. Thanks, Dani. How about you, Curtis?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Curtis. I was actually born in New York, but grew up in Aurora, Ontario. The sport of choice for me is lacrosse. I've been playing that for a while now. For schools, I went to Trent for a couple of years too. I kind of done my athletic career there now. The last show or movie I've watched, I'm not a huge movie person. I'm more of kind of a sports guy. I was watching football today, so I'll go with that. My favorite phone app, I would say Instagram for sure. And then favorite athlete, I'd have to go with Mike Tyson.
Right on. Nice. Justine.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Justine. I was actually born in Florida and I grew up in New Jersey. My sport is rowing, and I actually graduated just this past May. So I'm no longer in school, but I'm still in the Montreal area. The last show that I watched is What We Do in the Shadows. It's like a vampire show. I don't know if you guys know it. And then my favorite phone app is Instagram, and my favorite athlete of all time is Johanna Finn. She is a really good rower, and really is a kind of an inspiration for me. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine. And hi, everybody. My name is Britney Selina. I was born in North York, Ontario, but I grew up in Thornhill, Richmond Hill area, just north of Toronto. My sport of choice is hockey. The school I went to was Clarkson University in upstate New York. The last show that I watched was probably the first episode of White Lotus, season 2. My favorite phone app right now is Yahoo Fantasy Sports. Playing with a bunch of friends of mine back in the Northwest Territories where I was living for 10 years, no longer living there, but it's always fun to be the only girl kicking butt in a men's hockey sports fantasy league. And my favorite athlete of all time is probably Steve Yzerman. I just love him, and he's so adorable and good at the sport. And now he's with the Leafs, so God love him. I'm going to be honest. I thought that you guys were all going to be students in school. So I guess I misread that entirely. And this is actually way more exciting because you've all been there and you've all done that. So that's even better. So Jill actually came up with a ton of good ideas for this chat and kind of like directing questions. So I guess the idea is that you're going to be supporting students who are looking to make a decision for sport. Okay, so even better. So as you guys all know, going to post-secondary, regardless if you're in sport or not, is a huge transition. You know, new school, new environment, new friends, new everything, new routines. So I guess preparation is valuable, and that's kind of why we're all here together, collaborate, knowledge sharing, and kind of growing. So I guess we could kind of start it off with the first question, which I think will be pretty easy to navigate, but maybe we can just kind of go from our own experiences, is what are the benefits of being a student athlete?
So anyone can answer if anyone has something they want to share about it.
I think something that I definitely realized in my couple of years at Trent was you get surrounded by a good group of people, kind of people with the same mindset and goals as you, which definitely helped me along the way. Obviously, usually when you come in, some of them are older than you, which is kind of like a guiding hand for you in a way. Teaches you pretty valuable life skills, in my opinion. A lot of time management, especially balancing school, your social life, and the athletic side of it. And then obviously just hard work, determination, teamwork, obviously working with everybody on your team, and then leadership as well. I thought was a big one.
Yeah, that's great. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say, tying into that, the community of it all. I know when I always kind of wanted to go to UBC, being from Ontario. I was always homesick growing up, and that was something I was really nervous about, going far away for school. And I didn't think about it until I was in my first year that I basically joined a team of 16, 17 girls who were my friends. And I just automatically had this network and this group, and it helped so much with the transition to be able to talk to players who had been in my shoes before. A girl from Manitoba in her third year, like, really helped me get through those first few months away from home. And I just think having that network and girls on your team and your program years above you who can kind of guide you through that process of school as well, where to get help, support, just really like the community that it creates around you and the network. I think that was a huge benefit too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. I think for me, that was the main thing too. When you're moving away from home, and regardless, that was really far away from you, but moving away from home was nerve-wracking when you're only, like, I was only 18. I know some people are 19 or older, but it's nice to kind of have that sense of family, find it at your school, and kind of find the place that you fit in. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone has anything they'd like to add to that.
I think.
Oh.
Sorry. No, you go.
Thanks. No, yeah. So like I joined, like I never rowed before I like came to university. So I started out as a novice rower. And before then I was I used to run track and field, and I really enjoyed that environment of having, that being surrounded by a bunch of your friends. And I definitely wanted that aspect in in university. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna join the sport of rowing. And the fact that we practice at 5:30 in the morning and no one wants to be there, and you're still like out there kind of rowing together in a boat, it kind of builds like that sense of being like that togetherness and working as one. And I really enjoyed it, and I really like made some of my like lifelong friends that I currently have today. So I think that's like the huge benefit that I got from being a student athlete, is having that community that, you can always depend on, throughout your university and then afterwards as well.
Funny enough, that was more or less like the same point I wanted to make, just that idea that you build a community of like, especially with like the more experienced players, kind of like in terms of like years, kind of like what Dani said. I knew a lot of the rugby guys talk to a lot of the up years when like, hey, I'm taking these classes, or hey, I'm in this situation. Like, how did you handle it? And I feel like it's just a great network of people to have, like Justine said, in terms of these are people that you're going to probably, like, I think 2 of the 3 weddings I went to this past year were guys I played with at Trent. So it's like you build that kind of family that bleeds into your life after, either after the sport or after university. So it's a very intimate setting, especially if you're there for like multiple years.
Yeah, I think too, like the whole experience is so unique, and it's for a lot of people, it's the highest level they'll play their sport at. And just the whole setup and the dedication and commitment that you get to showcase throughout those years that you play, I think the whole experience is really unique, and I always talk really highly about it. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a privilege for sure. I agree with that. I always tell people that as well.
Yeah, I would have to echo basically what everyone else is saying. It's like when I went to school, all of my friends from high school were all conjugating to the same school. I think like 75% of my friends went to Western. And then it was just me going off somewhere where I was so unfamiliar. And like you, Dani, I was really homesick going there, but it was like I went into these built-in supports. My roommate was on my team. There was a collection of 20, 25 players that, you know, it was nice that they ranged from freshmen all the way up to seniors. So you kind of got the lay of the land right away, and you had those built-in supports from the get-go. And I think being a student athlete kind of gives you obviously a diverse kind of university experience. Whereas a lot of people, you know, they go to school, maybe they have a part-time job, you know, they party, they meet friends in the same way, maybe they join a frat or a sorority, and that's kind of how she goes. But as a student athlete, it's just a different ball game. And I think it's something that other student athletes kind of understand. And I have a lot of respect for people that kind of make that kind of sacrifice during what are supposed to be the top 4 years or 5 years of your life. So it's pretty cool. Now, all the things we love to talk about, what are some of the challenges of being a student athlete that future prospects should consider?
Well, I can start this one off because the challenges were kind of the reason why I wanted to have this type of panel to begin with, because my journey into varsity athletics was a little bit abnormal, because I know some people are like this too, but I didn't really play like a club sport. I didn't really know for sure. So I know some people from a pretty young age, they know that they want to play a varsity sport and they're going to continue their sport in university. So when I joined, it was kind of just a whirlwind decision, and I felt like I really just got thrown into it with being like, and it was the most shocking experience ever. And I wish I would have had something like this at 18 years old to kind of prepare me for it, because I thought that the biggest challenge for me was just the fact that you don't really go into it gradually. Like as soon as you start school and you start your sport, you're full on right away. And there are support systems and there's upper years to help you and stuff like that. But I think you really have to go into it knowing like there's going to be sacrifices. You're gonna have to give up some social time. You're really going to have to be super organized right from the get-go, where a lot of your peers might be able to have some time to figure it out, and where for you might not have as much time. It feels like it comes on a lot quicker. And so just kind of going into university with that mindset that, okay, I might have to adapt to this environment a little bit faster than the people around me. And I'm really going to have to lean on my teammates and my coaches and whatever support systems my school has to kind of get me going in the right direction. So I would say that was my biggest challenge, was just getting thrown right into it pretty quickly.
Yeah, you go from playing your sport 2 or 3 times a week to practicing every day, sometimes twice a day, workouts 2 or 3 times a week, and then 2 games on the weekends that are intense games too. And I remember not playing at all in my first year, and I would be exhausted after these games just because you're still so involved and you're just using all of that other energy to like create excitement and energy for your teammates who are on the court and stuff. Yeah, I think the big challenge that I remember most is like, it is about like the sacrifice, and you really have to kind of think about what you want your university experience to be like. And I know I said before, it's a unique experience, and that part of it is why I stuck to it. And you'll have friends that aren't on teams and they're doing this and they're going here this weekend, and you're on the road on the weekends, and it does add up. And I think kind of just realizing and being grateful, like we said before, for the opportunity that you have to play is huge in that. But also just being aware that it is a balance and a sacrifice that you have to make too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I feel like all my roommates throughout my entire university life were not athletes, and they're obviously doing things at certain periods of the week where I might have practice, or you might have to get prepared for a game on the weekend. They're going out on a Friday night. You're watching film, getting prepared for a Saturday game or something. So there's a whole different level of sacrifice that I feel like people don't get unless they're in the same position that you are. And another thing too, I think it's almost like a cliche answer, but like you have to keep on top of school too, right? Like at the end of the day, you're a student first, athlete second. Like you've probably been told that your whole athletic career. And it's very easy for people to fall under the radar at school and start slipping a little bit. I've had many friends and family even that have been in that situation and ended up dropping out or failing classes and all of that stuff. So at the end of the day, that's something that people have to realize, is that you may not have as much time to do that because you're committed to a sport where you're doing it 4, 5, 6 days a week. So I think that's something that they have to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, again, I started the sport when I got into university. I had no clue what the sport was and what like kind of challenges it would involve, like the wake ups at 5:30, and like I would oftentimes fall asleep in my 8:30 classes afterwards. And that is what kind of, like I wasn't used to this lifestyle, and it took some time to get adjusted to that lifestyle. And it was only by like maybe my second year where I was actually comfortable, waking up at 5:30 in the morning. Obviously, waking up at 5:30 does involve some sacrifices. You're not going out with your friends on a Thursday night or something. Like you can't stay up late and work on your homework. So you have to adjust your schedule around making time to have those morning practices at 5:30 in the morning. But again, like obviously that like having those challenges just makes you more like it helps you develop skills, like time management skills that like I never had going into university, but now like I'm like very good at time management because of this. So, with those challenges do come some benefits in the end.
I think kind of echoing everyone's points of just having all this like time that you have to allocate to your sport and to school and all the other things. I think one of the biggest challenges I face is just burnout at times, and having that burnout come a lot earlier than potentially for some of my classmates or some of my peers who weren't doing a sport. I think too, especially like at least for myself personally, I felt I tend to put more things on my plate than I think I can handle, especially when it comes to like in the season. I feel like that's just when everything is happening. For some reason, like I'm a fall sport. I feel like for me, it was just all school in the winter, but everything I wanted to do happened in the fall, and that just coincided with rugby. So I think just the idea that like burnout is very much a real thing in a student athlete's life, and just managing that is super important, especially when you get into like the waning parts of your season and like when playoffs start and things like that. I think another thing too that I kind of didn't expect until it actually came about was just the kind of the like microscope that you're under as a student athlete. Just the idea that you're like an ambassador of your sport and just the athletics of your school in as a total, like in its totality. So it's like you are kind of just held to a higher standard a lot when it comes to your behavior on campus, off campus, whatever the case may be. I know we had specific rules about what your demeanor should be, especially like if you're going out, and what not to do, what not to wear, and things like that. So I think just the idea that like you're constantly being seen as an ambassador of what sport you represent and just the school as a whole, I think is like a big responsibility too that young students should take in when they're wanting to go into athletics.
That's a great point. That's a great point. It's like we're in politics. Like you have to be careful when you leave your house, but you also have to be good in house. Yeah, that's it's a full-time commitment and you're under the public eye. For sure. I really like what you said, Justine, about, yeah, these are challenges, but you can also look at them as strengths. You know, yeah, you miss out on some of that normal college experience, but then you learn how to juggle, you learn time management, you learn, like Curtis said, the importance of academics. I know when I was in school, if you didn't have a 3.0, it was mandatory that you went to study hall for 2 hours a week. So for 4 years, I spent my time in study hall for 2 hours a week. And that kind of taught me, yeah, you are an athlete second. So it kind of forces you to get your priorities in line in a good way. Does anyone else have any challenges they'd like to add? All right. Okay, so I guess this will depend on sport and school, but how many hours a week can I expect to commit to varsity athletics?
I think you made a good point there. Like, it depends a lot on both your school and what sport you play. But like, I think it's easily 30 to 40 hours a week, I would say, at minimum. Like for us, at least, we practice 4 times a week. That's 2 hours each. Plus you're there probably an hour before, half an hour after. Then plus working out every day. And then on the weekends, you're traveling, usually most weekends. So factor in the bus ride, the actual games, the bus ride home, whether you're staying in a hotel. It could easily be 40 plus hours a week. And it adds up pretty quickly.
Mhm. And I think too, like people will say, yeah, in season, but also like preseason can be very busy for some teams too. Like we went on a week-long trip, and that can affect someone's academic life a lot. And it's just like something that you have to prepare for, and like all the skills that we learn being a student athlete, like you have to learn them. You're forced to learn them, really. Yeah.
I think too
Yeah.
that, go ahead, Justine.
Sorry, I feel like I'm cutting people off.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, like just based off of also what everyone said, like obviously there's like that training, like your normal training, which for us it was like 1.5 hours every morning. So, but you have to also factor in, traveling time. We don't have a body of water right next to McGill University, so we actually have to go to the Olympic Basin by metro, so that takes like a good 30 minutes. And then a lot of our competitions are in St. Catharines, so that's again like a 7-hour bus ride there and then back, and you're spending the whole weekend there. So it can get be a lot for some people. But the thing about rowing is that it's like a fall sport, and when the water freezes, you're not on the water anymore. So it's like intense, but for a very short time. So then it kind of gets to like somewhat of normal training where you can actually like have more time to study. But yeah, so for like the period of like September to early November, it's quite intense, and then for the rest, it's kind of like just training for winter season.
I think it depends too on like throughout. And so for example, I played a winter sport, I guess, but it goes all year. So as soon as we start in September, we have preseason. So for a lot of sports like volleyball, basketball, hockey, stuff like that, so I guess the time that you have to allot to the sport in the preseason might be a little bit less. So you're not going for as many games and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the time where you need to know, like, okay, so this whole month of September is going to be my lightest month of the year. So that means I need to get ahead of my schedule, because around midterms, at least for volleyball, it was always end of October, it would come midterms. And that was also always when our first season, like actual season games would start. And then all of a sudden, the second that first season game starts, you're just full into it. So you want to get ahead in the beginning, and then you have your really busy season. And depending on how successful your program is, you could be going all the way to the end of March. When I was at Humber, we went to nationals, and I think nationals were either the end of March or beginning of April. Like, it was crazy. It was really close to final exams. And that was when I would say that was when our season is the busiest, because that's when you should be performing to your best ability, and you're practicing the hardest, and you're keeping a really tight schedule. So I guess for volleyball, it's kind of the opposite of the fall sports, is you kind of start off light, and then in the winter time is when your heavier course load, or when your heavier practice load comes. And yeah, it's just about managing. And after you get through your first year, I found that you kind of got your schedule pretty down pat on when you could play catch up, and when you did have a little bit free time and stuff like that you could use. Yeah.
Kind of going off of that, like depending on when your sport is, like whether it's winter or fall, you can also like adjust your class schedule. So for example, I would take 4 classes in the fall versus 5 in the winter to accommodate for the fact that I probably won't have as much time to dedicate to coursework during the fall, and then I just do more during the winter. So that's another way that you can try to balance your schedule as well without, like actually missing classes.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that, the ebbs and flows of every season, kind of prepping varsity future athletes to prep for that. If you're playing volleyball, you're going to be jammed at this time of year, but maybe it'll be a little bit less at this time of year. So, flexing your schedule, knowing that you might be able to attend more social events. One of the other things that I didn't realize you would have a time commitment for was things that weren't sport related, like volunteering, or going into high schools and reading to kids. Or I remember ringing a bell for the Salvation Army around Christmas time outside of a Walmart for 2 hours. And, going into it, I never thought I'd be doing some of that. So I think, most schools will require athletes to do that kind of volunteer work. So just kind of also setting that kind of expectation aside too. What else did we spend our time doing in sports? Practices, games, travel, off season, preseason, during season, meetings. Yeah, video.
I think depending on your situation too, like some people would be doing like physiotherapy or rehab to a certain extent if they were injured too. Like you could always factor that in as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Nice ice bath. Okay. Awesome, that's great. Next question. Should I choose a school based on their athletics?
I feel like I'm a hypocrite about this because I think I chose my school based on the program, and I really wanted to be on the national team, and the program at UBC put players on the national team. But then when you're there and there's so many unknowns, and you could really struggle. You could not have the role you want on your team. You could kind of just it not be as you expect, and injuries, right? And so now I tell people, like, you need to pick your school and think, I'd be happy here if I wasn't on the team here too, and people don't like to think about that stuff, but it's life, and we don't know what the path that we take, where it takes us. And so I just, when we're talking to recruits and stuff now, like that's something like we bring up, and we're like, you have to make sure that like you'll still be happy at the school you pick, even if you weren't on the team. And I know that the team still probably plays a big role in where they end up, but it's still something that is important.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think it, like, to a certain extent, it's okay to factor it into the decision-making process of it, but to base your decision solely off the sport at the school, I think is a little bit dicey at times. It could kind of not turn out the right way. I think there's a lot of other factors you might want to take into account. Like, first off, your program that you're going to be going into, is the school that you were choosing beneficial for you? Is the location of the school in a good spot? Like, for example, for Dani, she's moving across the country. Like, that's not for everybody. Not everyone can just go ahead and do that. So if you're basing your decision solely off of the program, the location of it might not be ideal for you. And then like even little things like the cost of living and stuff, I would factor into it, like above just the athletic side of things.
Yeah.
I agree with that as well. I have kind of an experience with that with going to Humber, because I like Humber's athletic program is incredible and their team's amazing. Like top college team in the province, amazing people. And so I love their athletics and I love their volleyball program. And I had a great time there because I was playing volleyball. But I did think of this when I was there, because I knew, like, if I would have got injured or if there was something happened to me where I couldn't have played volleyball, I knew, like, I didn't love Etobicoke. I'm not a big city person, which is why I like Trent so much. It was a little bit smaller town. Yeah, I didn't like Etobicoke. It's expensive because it's near Toronto. And there were a lot of factors that I thought, like, oh, if I wasn't playing volleyball here, I don't think I would love it here. And that someone else might have. That's just my opinion. So yeah, I think like you definitely need to know that if you weren't going to play your sport there, would you still be happy in that environment? Because that's kind of what it's all about.
I think for some athletes, this kind of relates to Dani's point. Depending on like your trajectory with the sport, it may have some sort of an influence based on where you want to go. I know that like rugby, for example, all the hubs for rugby are out west. So if you don't go to UVic or UBC, it's going to be very hard for you to go to the next gen level in terms of like, just because they're able to play the entire off season, they're able to train most of the year in that climate. And that's where a lot of the training facilities for Team Canada are. And I think that's not to say that like, we're not at a point where like, if you're talented, you won't be noticed, but like, it's tough for some players who maybe use university more as like a stepping stone for going to the more amateur athletics route. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it just comes with kind of its territory of like, you're in just like a weird in between. I've seen guys who kind of have like started more domestically and then they moved out west and now just all they do is rugby. So I feel like for them, it just kind of like depends on like what your kind of goal with the sport is at the end of the day. And if you're seeing like it's weird. I don't want to like sound like pessimistic with it. I just feel like in certain aspects, it's really difficult if like your end goal is to try and be really big in your sport, but the school you go to may not help facilitate what you want. I think that's why a lot of, even like you see a lot of one and dones in D1, but I feel like you see it less in Canadian sports, whether it's like OUA, U Sports, KUFLA, Rogue in Canada, whatever it may be. So I think the culture is just not like set up for it.
That's a really good point. Actually, I had written that down, like to ask students, what is your goal? Is your goal to go to school and sport as a secondary? Are some students like you, Justine, you said, I didn't even know my sport until I got to school. So is that your goal? Is your goal, like Mohamed said, is this as a stepping stool to do something like amateur or pro, semi-pro after you get out of school? So what are some things that student athletes could do to kind of see where they're at? Some kids will go into school not knowing what their goal is. So what can they do for prospective schools or before they go that can kind of help guide their decision?
I think just reaching out to different schools. Like if you even have, I wish someone would have told me that when I was a bit younger, like even in grade 10, grade 11, that if I even thought that maybe there was a chance that I might want to pursue a sport, try reaching out to some different schools. And it was hard for me. That's another challenge too, is I come from a really rural area and not a lot of athletes are recruited from that area. And no one really gives anyone from my area a chance because there's no like club sports and stuff like that. But I still think that if I would have reached out and taken some video and had my coaches help with that and reached out to some different coaches at different schools that I thought maybe I might want to play for and see what kind of feedback I got back, if they would be interested in taking me, if I could come and see the facilities, if I could even come practice with the team, talk to girls on the team, stuff like that, see what they think about the school and if they were happy with their choice or not, just to kind of get some feelers out. I would say like the best thing you could do is start reaching out to potential schools and coaches as soon as possible, if there's even a chance that you might want to play.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like, especially with the coaches aspect of it, I feel like most of them are pretty good. If you like, maybe they've had a chance to see you play or they'll bring you in and practice with the team, like they'll be pretty honest with you about where you might stand. And I think that they might be able to give you some insight into like how they run their program, what you can expect if you came to the school. So I think it'd be definitely a good idea for them to kind of reach out to them and try to get a feel for it first.
Yeah. I'm like, so I am from the US. So when I started rowing in Canada, I like got to a level where like I could like have been on one of the NCAA teams. So I like reached out to coaches, and oftentimes the coaches would like, have Zooms with you to like discuss what your goals are, what your aspirations are in the sport. So I'm sure that if you reach out to coaches via email, or like the assistant coaches, something can be arranged. And even like I attended IRAs, which is like a big like college regatta in the States, and just seeing like, the kind of level that they perform at also gives you a good idea of like, okay, is this what I want? Is this something that I see myself doing in the future? So like contacting coaches and also maybe like attending some of those sports events could give you a really good idea if you're like just starting to think about doing something like playing in university.
Yeah, there's something too. So I do a lot of recruiting as like the assistant coach at Queens. And another thing that's becoming more and more popular is showcases that clubs, organizations put on. Even ourselves, like we have an ID camp 3 times a year to try to see people. Anyone can sign up, and it gives us an opportunity to maybe see someone play that hadn't reached out to us, or we don't see at the typical like top tier tournaments at provincials and nationals, etc. And we always have Zoom meetings. Like our top priority is like the person we're recruiting, like that comes first, just to help build our team culture and what we want the team values to be. Like, it's so important that we're getting good people before like the most amazing athlete that is available, and so on the Zoom calls, we just try to get to know people a lot and ask them what their hobbies are, what their families like, what they like to do outside of sports, and how school's going and things like that. And what they like you guys said, like what they want their university experience to look like, their goals, like do they want to try to play national team one day or whatever it is. And I think like that helps us kind of see, okay, this person has the right type of mindset and idea about like what our team's about, and it kind of gives us a chance to see like, yeah, they'd fit into like our culture, our work ethic, what the girls on the team already value, and if they kind of align as well. But the only way to do that is if like the high school kids reach out to us and kind of take that first step. And I know that it can be really intimidating to be on a Zoom call with 2 coaches and that like potentially are deciding a big decision about your future, but I don't know, I think like we're just people too, and we just want to get to know people and see the best fit for everyone.
That's an amazing point, getting to know the player first before their abilities in the sport too. The old saying goes, so cliche, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work. So are you just going to show up and get by on your abilities, or are you going to be a part of a culture that works hard and busts for every goal that we aim to achieve? Well, I guess that kind of leads into the next question is, what can students do to prepare for this before they get there?
I think getting a chance to play your sport during some sort of like lower amateur league, like during the summer, just playing just getting out, even if it's rec. I think some athletes have a hard time with just playing their sports in their season and kind of having that little bit of a lull where it's like they're not getting a chance to hone their skills, and really, because there's only so much you can do when you're not actually playing your sport. So I think I know for rugby specifically, summer rugby is huge all over Ontario, and a lot of the guys and women will play with students from other schools throughout, depending on where their hometowns are. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, we had our fun during the season, and then we'll see you when we play your school in the following week. So I think yeah, getting that chance to just play your sport as much as you can, and it's a good chance to network too, because a lot of the coaches and people who are involved at your sport at the university level oftentimes will be involved in leagues like that as well.
Yeah, we always tell people to try to play as much as possible. And I think like people or high school kids at that age, like there's so much development that they can do. And if they aren't playing as much as they could be, like that's kind of lost there. Yeah.
I think like another thing too, kind of going off what Mohamed was saying, is like, especially for more physical sports, like maybe lacrosse, rugby, hockey, football, like especially for younger people, like definitely getting in the gym. It's a big jump going from playing high school kids where you're the oldest person there to going in and playing people who are 4, 5, 6, 7 years older than you. Sometimes it's in a physical sport like that, like to be physically prepared and ready is a huge aspect of it, because if you come in and you're smaller, shorter, faster, or like slower than everyone else, it makes it tough to make the adjustment to the next level. So that would be something that I would definitely recommend to people, is just get in the gym, get stronger, get faster, get in shape, get prepared for the season coming up, because it is a big jump. And I don't think people realize that till they actually get there.
You're reminding me of my first year in my undergrad. Is I actually don't even think I knew what the gym was until I went to university. And my God, I learned some new muscles real fast hitting the gym. And you're right. If I had just taken some time to prepare physically even for such an intense sport, I think it would have done me some good, but I had to learn the hard way.
A lot of people do.
I was the exact same. It was awful.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. I was just gonna add on. Rowing is kind of unique in that, you know, there's an actual time associated with how well you can perform at like higher levels in university. So like for people who are more interested in like doing rowing, one thing that they could do to prepare kind of is just get like a good erg score. So that's like the 2K score and 6K. So just hopping on the erg and really just getting the like kilometers down really helps with like getting your time down. And when you then contact coaches and say, okay, I'm interested, here's my 2K and 6K time, this can kind of give them it'll kind of give them an idea of like how you would fare in the team. So that's more specific for rowing, but yeah.
I think even just to add on to that, like going to a game at your local university during their season when you're in your when you're in your like senior year, I think is super important. I know a lot of the times when I played at Trent and even now at Queens, a lot of the local high school kids would come and watch some of the games, especially if they were interested in rugby. And anytime they talk to us afterwards, they're like, "Oh, it's so much faster and more physical than I expected." So kind of goes to what Curtis is saying. It gives you also that mental prep to say, okay, if I want to play at this level in the following year, what do I have to do to kind of make that happen? So I think, yeah, just going out and seeing that live for yourself is like a big resource if it's like nearby to you or you can access that.
Yeah, good point. And Justine, I think your point is also relevant for sports that are for time. I think that would probably be important for something like track, kind of giving your times on whatever your specialty is there, like whether it's the sprints or it's the long distance, I think is also pretty relevant. What skills do you believe you are learning as an athlete that will benefit you down the road and into the real world?
I think we've touched on a few already for sure, but like ones that stand out to me would be leadership for sure. Especially when you start getting into your senior years, people that are coming into the school, like obviously you've been in their shoes before. So just being able to kind of be that role model, I think you definitely learn a lot of leadership throughout it, and like determination, hard work, working together as a team. It all goes one and one together, right? So I think there's a lot of different things that you can kind of learn throughout the process of it.
Yeah, I would say teamwork for sure. And just in another sense of just that unity you have towards one goal that you have as the team. And I think it's unique if you like everyone on your team too, you know, like there's you're gonna like people are on a lot of teams throughout their lives in their sport. And there's always like maybe like not, I don't know, best friends with everybody, but it doesn't like being on the team isn't about that. It's about something bigger than you. And it kind of teaches you how to work with other people too, and putting things like that aside to work towards what you guys are trying to achieve too. And I think that's really unique and something that someone like is important to learn how to work with all types of people and yeah, strive towards a common goal.
Yeah, that's a good point. Cause like, even when you get out of school, if you're working a full-time job or whatever it might be, like that skill comes in handy in a lot of different situations.
Mm-hmm.
I think that applies to, well, it's kind of like what you were saying, but how to like handle conflict in kind of a professional way, because that has to be one of the hardest things to do, especially in like a workplace setting. And I know when you're on a team and like you said, there's new athletes coming on the team every year, maybe play for different schools. There's no chance that you're loving every single person on your team. Like it maybe that might be the case, and that would be awesome. But in the real world, I think there's always going to be a bit of conflict, especially in those kind of intense settings where like emotions are high and everyone's exhausted and you're kind of push each other to your breaking point. And I think that when I first started university, I was a little bit awkward in that sense. And I definitely didn't feel confident enough to handle conflict or stick up with myself or even approach someone if they did something that bothered me and kind of thing. And then out of everything I've done in my life, this playing volleyball and being in a team setting has helped me handle conflict, I think, the best. And now I feel pretty confident entering the workforce that I can always kind of stand my ground, but also deal with it in a really professional way. And I think that's really one of the best skills that I've gotten out of it.
Another one I would say is mental resiliency. And, you know, it's like for volleyball, it's a long season and it's you have to be very dedicated and every day, like get this mindset going that this day is important to get me to my goal. And that's really hard to do when it's day in and day out. And maybe you don't feel like doing it today, but still kind of working past that and get to the gym, doing your lift, showing up to practice and giving your all. Like it's hard to do. And I think that has taught me a lot too. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to do your day. You're like, you know, I can do this. Like it just really taught me to be resilient. Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of going off of that, like I think another important skill is dependability. So like, for example, for us, we don't have people waiting on the benches to hop in a boat. When one of us isn't there at practice in the morning, all of us can't row. So that's another practice missed. And like our season is so short that those missed practices do end up like having quite a large impact. So, you know, having, you know, that sense of being, you know, trusted by your peers and saying like, yes, I'll show up every single day of the week at 5:30 in the morning to hop in the boat and row because that's what I want to do. And like, you have to make sure that you're there for others and that you guys are pushing together. And yeah, you're doing the workouts together because you want to be better as a whole. Like you want to beat the other boats. So you have to be there for each other.
I think the well-roundedness that we talked about for the last hour is going to help athletes either indirectly, like Jill was saying, like with conflict resolution at work, or directly, like Dani, you said you're a coach and a recruit. So it doesn't get more directly correlated to sport than that. You know, so maybe kids won't see it in the moment, but when they leave with a bucket load of skills and opportunities for future career opportunities, whether, you know, it's coaching or, you know, or becoming a equipment manager or whatever it is, or maybe it's just having those soft skills that you learned through sports that take you into your life, regardless of where you go.
And I think too, like, honestly, I don't think there's a person that I've ever talked to who hasn't said that being a varsity athlete has just made them a better person overall. Like, I know that it's kind of shaped me into the type of person that I am today. And I definitely owe my sport to that. And I'm always thankful for that. And it's pretty common amongst most athletes that I've talked to that they kind of feel the same way. So yeah, I'm always grateful for my sport for that, for sure.
Well, let's end on a high note. Well, the whole hour has been a high note, but let's end on a high note by talking about ourselves. Let's just go around and everyone maybe share your most favorite memory in sport or your biggest accomplishment in sport that is important for you to share. Mohamed's rolling through all of his accomplishments. He's like,
Yeah.
which one do I say?
Curtis has a big accomplishment that he just got. How about he starts?
That was huge.
Yeah, my lacrosse team here at Trent this year won our first championship, so that was definitely a big one that stands out for sure. Another thing that I was gonna just kind of say on that point is, like, I think just like in general, looking back on the years, like the everyday showing up to practice and that's the kind of stuff that you miss at the end of it, right? Like my coach said this my entire career at Trent. Like, they don't turn the lights on for you forever here. Like, that time comes to an end. And I think that that's something that you don't really appreciate until it's over. And like, just something to, like, as a point of guidance almost for people coming into it is, like, just make every second of that count, because like I said, like they don't do that for you forever. It's a privilege to get to be at that level and get to play your sport at your school. So just take advantage of it and make every second count, because it doesn't last forever. And for some people, it might last longer after university than others. For others, it might end the second that you're done at university. So just make it worth it, I think would be my kind of point of advice for everyone coming in.
Yeah, I always reminisce about, that first year when I was starting like this new sport. Like most of my favorite memories are from that year, is like being there before the sun rises and then being on the water when the sun rises. So seeing that and being like, wow, I actually did something productive with my day and it's only like 6:30 a.m. Like that was always one of the best feelings that I had while I was rowing in university. And then like unfortunately for me, like my whole career was kind of like slashed with COVID. But I still enjoyed moments during COVID because that sense of togetherness still stuck with my team throughout. And like we do virtual like erging and that kind of stuff. And eventually like I would erg so much during the winter and stuff that like I entered my first like indoor rowing competition. And then like last year I got first place in the U23 World Indoor Championships. So that's one of the most like eventful things that I think happened in my rowing career.
So I played national team, I've played professionally. And I can honestly say that winning like a national championship with my team at UBC has been my favorite memory by far. And I think it's because of those like years leading up to it, and that those practices, those lifts, like everything that we put into that just really made that moment so much more special. And looking back at my career, like that's my highlight for sure. And I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to play, and it's still one of my favorite moments ever.
I think for me, playing like it's weird because I'm also in that like coaching stage of my life. This year I got to coach with the women's team here at Queens, and they had a really an amazing year. But like I don't know, just having played rugby like within university and like high school, like for the last 11 years, I think my favorite moment was this year, just coaching and seeing this one player who wasn't sure if she was going to be able to play because she had this weird type of injury, and then seeing her sub in for the national finals against Laval. It was just so amazing to see how much 4 months can change a person's life, and how much like if you put the time in and you truly are like just a coachable person, you can like get through a lot. And I think like I hadn't felt like that sense of pride in myself. I had to see it in somebody else to be able to say, wow, this is like just the power of sport. So I think probably that's like my most satisfying moment within it. And it was awesome.
For me, I mean, yeah, there's so many, but yeah, obviously when I went to Humber, that was kind of where we had the most success as a team, and we won provincials, and that feeling was amazing. And my team that year worked really hard. And again, this was last season, and it was kind of like a mixed COVID year. There was a whole week where almost every single person on our team got wiped out with COVID, and we had to pull up people from like the golf team to even come sit on the bench at one of our games just to have enough people there. Like we had the craziest season. And so obviously like winning that championship was definitely unreal, but I still think that my favorite like volleyball memory of all time was in my second year at Trent. And the funny thing is we actually lost this game, but it was against Ryerson, and it was at our homecoming. And at Trent, our homecoming is actually like Justine will probably know, but it's actually a rowing regatta. But the
Oh yeah. It's
pod.
so much fun.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and it's kind of it's what best day of the year, 100%. All the teams usually have games. In volleyball, we usually would have an exhibition game, and ours was against Ryerson. And I think this was the year that Ryerson was coming off of their national championship, if I'm not wrong. So they won it the year before, and we at Trent were pretty far off from being a national championship team. So it was a bit of a mixed match in competition, and we obviously thought we'd get blown out of the water by them. But just our gym is very small at Trent, and so when the stands are full, it's very loud in there, and it's the most incredible environment I've ever been in. And all of our friends, everyone came and absolutely packed the stands, and we had the game of our lives. It was the most unreal game I think I've ever played in volleyball, and we took them to 5 sets. At the end of the day, like, they were more experienced, and they just they knew that they were going to win, and they kind of ticked away at us, and they won the game. But best feeling ever, because I remember like the crowd going crazy, our team just being so happy with how we played after the game. And even though we lost, I was kind of like, it's just, that's what it's all about, right? So that's definitely still my favorite memory to this day.
That is amazing. I mean, this like whole conversation has been just good vibes and positive energy. And I think that really speaks to athletes as a whole, and for kids making their decision is kind of, do you want to feel like this? You know, part of a group like this. Like, I don't know any of you, and I feel like I could be on this call until 9. I just sent a screenshot into the chat. I guess that'll be my favorite memory. It's because our PowerPoint didn't work. I don't know if you guys could see it when you open it, but it's my daughter's face photoshopped onto me as a university athlete. And I guess that my favorite memory, I mean, is similar to yours, Jill, is just like hearing the crowd and being a part of an environment every day at the rink. Was phenomenal. Beating rivalry teams, whether it's in season or playoffs, amazing. But for me, it's kind of that hope for the future for our athletes, and for my daughter to, you know, try out different sports. And if she doesn't like hockey, it's fine. But, you know, at least she can have the opportunity to kind of become a part of a team no matter where she ends up. So I think that's pretty wild. And I really do thank you guys so much for your time and your feedback. I mean, this has been pretty cool, and I feel like I've just been transported back into university, and that kind of feeling of camaraderie and excitement for achieving something as a collective. So thank you all, really.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was really awesome for you all to join in, and you all had some really valuable things to say, for sure.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
That was awesome.
Take care, guys.
Awesome. All right. See you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.